The relationship between British colonizers and Indigenous Australians has a complex and often tragic history. The British First Fleet arrived in Botany Bay in 1788, marking the beginning of British colonization in Australia. The British declared Australia Terra nullius, land belonging to no one, ignoring the existing Indigenous populations and their traditional rights to the land. Early interactions varied between cooperation and conflict, with some Indigenous groups trading with the settlers, while others resisted the encroachments. The introduction of new diseases by Europeans had devastating effects on Indigenous populations, who had no immunity to illnesses such as smallpox. A series of conflicts and battles between British settlers and Indigenous Australians took place over land and resources, often referred to as the Frontier Wars. Dispossession of land. As colonization expanded, Indigenous Australians were progressively dispossessed of their land, leading to significant disruption of their traditional lifestyles. From the mid-19th century, various protection policies were introduced, which often involved moving Indigenous people onto reserves and subjecting them to European authority. From 1910 to the 1970s, thousands of Indigenous children were forcibly removed from their families as part of assimilation policies, leading to long-term trauma. Throughout the 20th century, policies aimed at assimilating Indigenous Australians into European culture further eroded Indigenous identity and culture. A significant milestone, with the referendum in 1967, allowed Indigenous Australians to be counted in the census and gave the federal government power to make laws for Indigenous peoples. The 1970s saw the growth of the Indigenous land rights movement, highlighted by the landmark 1992 Mabo case, which overturned the Terra nullius doctrine. Various efforts have been made to reconcile with Indigenous Australians, including the establishment of the Council for Aboriginal Reconciliation in 1991. In 2008, Prime Minister Kevin Rudd made a formal apology to the stolen generations, acknowledging the suffering caused by decades of mistreatment. Despite progress, Indigenous Australians today continue to face significant challenges, including disparities in health, education, and employment.